Shea Dixon's got great information around LSU football, around recruiting, and LSU is in the conversation right now in the transfer portal. Recruits out there. There's a lot to get to with Shea this morning here on the Jordy Culotta Show as we are driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. Shea, good morning, buddy. How are you?
Morning. I was thinking about that yesterday. Joe Burrow wasn't even alive.
Wow.
The last time the Bengals won a playoff game.
Yeah,
that you can prove.
I was barely alive.
You're barely.
I was a year and a half old, 2 years old.
Man. Shea, think about what he's accomplished in just a year and a half in an organization that has not won a playoff game since 91. I mean, how cool is it right now to be a Cincinnati fan?
I mean, he's completely changed. You'd have to imagine as a Bengals fan, too, they're going into this one with expectations of, oh, we should win. We're the higher seed. We're at home. We won the North. We should win. 2 years ago, they were the worst team picking number one for a reason. They won 4 games. They couldn't make it to the playoffs. It's unbelievable. I saw a stat yesterday. Someone tweeted out. I can't remember who it was, but it was like Joe Burrow in must-win games. And I was like, this dude must have never talked to Joe Burrow before because his record in must-win games is however many football games he's played in his life. I don't know if he's ever considered something not to be must-win.
That's right. All right, Shea.
Northwestern State was must-win.
The time period for LSU right now and what they've been experiencing the last couple of weeks is somebody who is followed and covered this program as long as you have. What has this time period been like? Is there anything that you can compare it to?
Well, I mean, no, not that we've experienced, at least on the LSU side of things, in terms of just wholesale change and then having to completely replace a staff and almost completely replace, an entire football ops building. And then, so much there goes on that we don't even see. And then publicly what we see is guys entering the portal, guys entering the draft, guys staying, you're adding new guys in the portal each day. They've been having visitors on campus now who are transfer portal guys almost every day, probably from the middle of the week to through the weekend. So busy stretch. I mean, if we go through all that, and I haven't even named a high school kid yet. That's what we're used to. It's just normal high school recruiting, and we haven't gotten a ton of that here lately. So it's an interesting stretch to just watch, and I'm curious to see how they reshape the roster. And I can promise you this, and I'm sure if you talk to Brian Kelly, he would say the same. No matter what they do out there, they can sign 32 guys. Go for it. And you're going to load up. They can sign 15 more guys if you want to. You can't snap your fingers and fix the roster for next year. Like I'm just not in that boat. I don't think that they can have the most competitive team that they want this next year because I just don't think the roster's built that way yet. Now, let him get his hands on things. I think that they have a really nice core of really young guys on the team that could be leaders for you, that you can lean on and rely on. But I just think total program-wise, if I'm Brian Kelly, my goal is to just win one more game than they won this year, which would be let me win 7 or 8 games, but I'll promise you things behind the scenes won't be as bad. We'll be moving in the right direction. I'm not in the boat that's saying, oh, man, they're going to go out there and load up on all these guys and win double-digit games next year. I'm not there.
Noah Kane entered the transfer portal yesterday. He is a South Louisiana native who's up at Penn State. He spent his senior season at IMG Academy. This feels like Frank Wilson, right? I mean, if he goes anywhere, how much of a shot does LSU have?
I think for the reason you said is why I'd put LSU in it. Like before, I would say, okay, well, look, they've got John Emery coming back. You've got Goodwin and Kiner. You've got Trey Bradford still in the roster. You potentially could be Simon Citizen here out of Lake Charles. But with Frank's involvement and Frank now being on staff, I think that I look very quickly at LSU. I look very quickly at, he had spent some time in Texas at the Texas schools. Maybe the Longhorns get involved. But for sure, I think that he's a name, probably the first transfer portal running back name that we've looked at and said, whoa, look, that's a name all of us are very familiar with. And from talking to people and kind of getting a feel for what their plans are there, I fully expect them to be pushing for him.
A lot of people curious about Jacoby Mathews and what this next couple of weeks is going to be like for the 5-star safety out of Ponchatoula. How do you see this thing closing up?
Well, it's going to take it all the way to signing day in February. So they've got a few more weeks. You've got in-home visits you're making. They'll be over at Ponchatoula High a bunch next week when things open back up, or each week, I should say. A&M has been a big team that's been in the mix. Texas has been in the mix a bunch. Florida, I think, is trying to crawl back into things with Billy Napier's staff. But I would just keep going back to LSU. And I think that a lot of these hires, Jordy, that LSU's made off the field, meaning like not the 10 on-field coaches. So a lot in the recruiting department, guys like Kane. I think a lot of that's going to help them out with guys like Jacoby Mathews. Lots of relationships there. I think they're figuring out the NIL sort of side of things with all these guys, right? Kind of as each week goes by. And I think by the time signing day arrives, they'll have figured out kind of what it takes to make that final pitch to Jacoby and keep him in state. So my crystal ball picks on LSU, and I probably feel a little bit better about it than I did a month ago when they were going through, finding a coach and hiring Brian Kelly, and we didn't know what his staff would look like moving forward in these final few weeks. We know exactly what the staff looks like. We know exactly kind of who signed early and who's left. I feel pretty good about Jacoby. My pick right now, I'd have it about a 7 confidence level that he picks LSU.
Nice. Devin Ewing and Neil DiBenedetto have questions for you concerning Georgia. Jalen Kimber, a corner from Georgia, is in the portal. Shea, does LSU have a shot on him? And then Neil asks, #AskShea, any word on Jermaine Burton, wide receiver, entering the transfer portal who was once committed to LSU? DiBenedetto said that there are rumors out there that he is unhappy.
Yeah, well, I'd say let's start there. I'd say the thing, too, and this is me speaking, so maybe I'm not going to speak for Brian Kelly, but it's my opinion on how he runs the program. Jermaine Burton was a guy who committed to LSU and then flipped on him on signing day and left him in a real bad spot. It was him and Raheem Jarrett. And y'all can remember that. They were like 2 pretty high-profile guys. Ultimately, they just get Keishawn Butte. Now, Butte's been way better than both of them, but they left him in the cold there for a minute. And from just kind of talking to people around Athens, I'm not so sure Burton would fit in with what Brian Kelly's trying to do here. And take it as you may. I think that's going to be a thing moving forward. And I think it has to be. I think a lot of this is what kind of guys you're bringing on the roster. How, quick are they going to say, okay, I'm not playing now, I'm leaving. And then I'm an APR hit for you. Or I'm not going to school and now I've got you into academic trouble. You can't have that moving forward. You just can't afford any missteps. So I think they're going to be smart about how they approach this. And in terms of receiver, Kyron Lacey out of UL is the guy they're really, really hard on. I think he's going to be on campus today, I believe, and he visited Auburn already. I know Florida's trying to get in the mix there, but boy, he'd be one I would take, and they've offered him instantly over guys like Burton. So I haven't heard a ton of Burton stuff yet, and I'd be surprised if I did. In terms of cornerback, look, they got Mekhi Garner out of UL this week. He was one of their commitments. Greg Brooks out of Arkansas, I think, will follow up Joe Fuchsia. He's a bit of a nickel, but Fuchsia plays safety, he plays nickel, Garner plays corner. I think they get all those guys, but you got to figure out, okay, we got to keep going after corners. I think that ultimately, look, Latrell McCutcheon out of OU went into the portal. He mentioned the Georgia guy. There's others that they've even offered. I don't think they've offered the Georgia prospect or the Georgia corner yet, but something to keep an eye on. I don't think they're done at corner yet, especially just look, Radarius Jones and Demarius McGee are the only guys on roster coming back at corner. And I've heard Radarius Jones might not even come back. So if you return just one guy and you sign 2 in Welsh and Allen, you're going to have to load up on portal guys. So pretty much anyone out there that can still go and that's got some eligibility that can play corner, they're going to get an
Trey Kirkland?
Shea, I have a question about the portal. So I know we've talked about being only able to sign 7 guys in the portal. Is it strictly to 7, or if you have the ability to sign more, you don't
25 plus 7?
Right, 25 plus 7, right? But what happens if you sign 20 guys? Can you sign more portal guys?
Yes. Okay. So
I guess this would be the best way.
Yeah, right. This would be the best way to put it. So right now they have 13 high school signees, 4 guys committed out of the portal, so that puts them around 17. You can get to 32. So let's say they've got 15 spots left. You can sign 15 transfers if you want to. You can sign 15 high school kids. You can sign 10 and 5. You can sign JUCO, whatever it might be. So these final 15 spots can be sliced up any way they want. If it's Jacoby Mathews and Citizen and Danny Lewis at Westgate and maybe 5 high school guys, well, then you're going to have 10, transfer portal spots, or maybe JUCO, I'd assume transfer portal. that you can still fill, and that's a lot. Consider you've already taken 4 or 5 transfer guys. And you think you can take as many as 10 more, maybe more than that if you don't get all the high school kids you're after and you're trying to fill this full class. So 32 players is a lot, especially adding to a team when you just rolled up to a bowl game with 39 players. So 32 is a good bit. Again, though, I don't think it fixes the roster right away, but it can help out a lot.
Oh, real quick, do you think they signed 32 like that? They won't have any empty spots?
I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I think that's pressing. Even when they have just 25 spots to sign, they don't always do it. And I think another thing Lloyd will do, and I'm guessing here, but we saw Orgeron and others do it, and it's probably the smart thing, is you want to hold a few till the spring, because that's when Burrow went to the portal. That's when a lot of guys have gone in the past. You know, they get through spring ball and they say, okay, look, I'm either not starting or I'm not where I want to be right now, or this ain't working out for me, whatever it might be. But it's not just this flurry of guys leaving, you know, for the portal right when the season ends and boom, I'm out. A lot of that stuff happens in the offseason, happens during spring ball, whatever it might be. And if you don't have any scholarships left, you obviously can't get in the mix there. And you don't want some for sure starter popping up and you not even be able to, you know, to put your coin down and enter the game. So, yeah, I'd imagine they'll get into the mid-20s and more of signees by the time February rolls through, and all these kids are trying to get on campus for the spring semester if you're a transfer. But those final few spots, I would guess they're going to hold just to see what, you know, kind of happens out there in the spring, whether it's March, April, May, or into the summer.
Do you remember the fresh-faced Joey B showing up to practice, the spring practices for the first time?
The long-haired,
very pale, a little chubby. Yes.
Midwestern.
Midwestern.
Yeah, Midwestern. Welcome to the South, Joey.
You're welcome.
Shay, we had Harold Perkins' uncle on. After that, Harold Perkins' mother left us a voicemail on the show phone, threatening us to take that clip down immediately. That the uncles had no idea and that they were just clout chasing. Harold Perkins announced that he was going to Texas A&M, but Uncle Al has spoken again, and it seems like LSU ain't dead here. What are we hearing on the latest on Harold Perkins? Maybe the best player in the entire recruiting cycle.
Oh, I read about this earlier this week. It is 100% not over there. And, Frank
Uncle Al.
It's, you know, Frank Wilson's involved.
Frank.
You know, all these different levels of coaches here are going to be pushing. You got to remember, though, the defensive coordinator, who's also the linebackers coach, is the one coach who's still in the NFL playoffs, right, in-house. So he doesn't get here till after that. You kind of have to watch for the Chiefs and make it all the way and win the Super Bowl. But that would be big and key. But I do know this, that charge until he's here will be led by Frank Wilson, and that means Frank going in home in Houston, you know, Frank going to school, all these different things where we've seen it before. I mean, give him a month to work, and he's one of the best in the business. That is, especially when it comes to recruiting a New Orleans kid to come back home. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how that one unfolds.
What are you hearing on the latest of guys like coming back, guys like Joe Evans and Dante Starks? What's the latest on guys that have been here before that now it looks like may have opportunities to rejoin the program?
You know, I don't have any intel there. I don't know. He hasn't played football in 2 years, and I don't even know what his academic standing is. So, I mean, maybe those guys can say, hey, look, I have a chance to come back, or maybe the staff comes back around on him. It would just surprise me if you're leaving for a violation of team rules. You haven't played football in now 2 years. I don't know where you stand academically. Maybe he's doing great, but that a new regime would then come in and say, hey, look, we need you to come back. It would just be surprising to me, but look, they're low on roster numbers. I guess I shouldn't be surprised by any moves they make.
Do you expect the Cortez Hankton news to come down, Georgia's offensive passing game coordinator, as LSU is looking to fill one more spot on their 10-man on-the-field staff, and that would be the wide receivers position? It seems like he's the name, right?
Yep, 100%. I won't be surprised if it's announced today or tomorrow or whenever it might be. So that's exactly what I'm expecting.
Wow.
Done deal.
Wow. What is he like as a recruiter?
Well, pretty good. Obviously, you're going to expect to have New Orleans ties, and he's younger, so you like both those things. But one thing while at Georgia, and look, you said Van Pran, their big O-lineman who starts for him out of New Orleans. Obviously, he got him to commit, but he was like the secondary, meaning like the area recruiter on a lot of their guys in Texas, in East Texas, meaning Houston, Dallas. And I think LSU fans have been curious of, hey, who on LSU's current staff is going to be that guy, just because None of them had really direct ties to, I grew up in Houston and played at, some college in Texas. We haven't seen that on any resumes, but I will say that Hankton's got, 3, 4, 5 years in him now, where he's really been kind of hard into the Houston area, into Dallas, and won't be surprised at all if they put him into that role when he gets to LSU.
You mentioned Danny Lewis, tight end from Westgate. He picked up the offer earlier this week. Do you expect him to commit, and what does he bring to the class?
This is a kid that was all district in baseball, football, and basketball. He's just a true athlete, and not a true burner, but boy, he's got strong hands, really solid tight end. I think he's a guy in his first couple years of the program that you'll start to see on the field and can make a little bit of an impact for you. I do expect him to pick LSU. We've talked about this with Mikey on the show before. If there's one pocket of the state that's really good to LSU, it's the Acadiana area. He's a Westgate kid. So I fully expect him to end up at LSU. Florida's in the mix. I know he's picked up some other offers and he's about to make a string of visits here, but it looks like LSU will get the last visit, which is always what you want. And then I'd be surprised he didn't just shut things down even sooner and said, look, I'm going to LSU. He's got Butte over there. He's got a teammate for next year, and Derek Williams that's being really heavily recruited by LSU. He's buddies with a ton of the, Walker Howard and all those guys who are all from the Lafayette area in this class. Terrence Welsh at Acadiana. So I'd be shocked at this point, and tossed in the fact that LSU doesn't have any tight ends. He comes and he's immediately number 1 or 2 on. Cole Taylor's the only other scholarship tight end that they brought in. They had to put in Jack Mashburn on the scholarship, and we'll see Mason Taylor, their one signee, get here this summer. So for him, he comes in and you do a little bit of competing, and suddenly you're in the 2 deep. You'll take that every day. I would think as a tight end, you're looking at LSU's situation and jumping all over it.
The latest on Travante Citizen?
Nothing new there. He's going to make some visits this month, but he's not going to. And LSU will be one of them, but he's not going to do or say anything until February, and that's when we'll have a good grip on it. But again, that's a Frank Wilson special right there. He's the running back, top running back on the board. You don't have one committed. That's a no doubt kind of Frank guy over these next few weeks.
Did you see the video of Quincy Wiggins at the Army All-American game? How scary was that? And how do you see Wiggins fitting in this class? We had a watch party the other night during the national championship game, and Jaquelin Roy was over here watching and just talking about the look ahead of having Mason Smith, Quincy Wiggins, and Jaquelin Roy, along with B.J. Ojulari, on the same defensive line, but 3 of the last number 1 defensive tackles or number 1 defensive linemen in the state the last 3 years, all on the same line of scrimmage, is really cool to think about.
Yeah, and I know he would say this as well. He's very fortunate that he only broke his wrist on that. But yeah, stay off the scooters, kids and adults. Those things just don't seem very safe. But yeah, regardless, he's yes, that's true. He's as the big man, we're breaking it down for you, Jordy. There is no doubt he's a good one. Here's the thing you got to remember: he's only played football for 2 years, and before that, he was a basketball kid. He's been a basketball kid his whole life with Jeff Jones over at Madison Prep. That's kind of where he kind of was being molded into. Well, then they put him out on the football field as an 11th grader during the pandemic. So you're not even practicing all the time. You're not even playing all your games. So this second year in 2021, it's just his senior year. It's his second year playing football. He finally gets the full slate in, gets to kind of know what to expect, and then goes out to the All-American Bowl. He showed up that week, and after a few practices, people were like, this is one of the alpha dogs here. This is one of the best D-linemen in the country. He's going up against guys who were, at private academies all the time working out and have played football their whole life. So I think his upside is as good as any kind of defensive lineman they signed in recent years. Now, I don't know if that translates to him being a Mason Smith level, oh boy, you put him out there in year 1 and you can just see it type of guy. But I think they'll develop him. We've seen Kelly talk about that being paramount. Development. Getting these guys that much better every single season, putting them in a position to have success. I think by year 2 and 3, Wiggins is going to be one of the better players on the team. He's going to have that sort of, almost like how B.J. Ojulari's been. Every year you see it to where, when it's rolling into year 3 or whatever it might be, you're saying, hey, look, we're going to lean on that guy to be one of the better guys on our defense.
Yeah.
Since Quincy is okay, and obviously the scooter thing, I think that was great to see that he popped up. Does that help him get his fifth star? You think the way he was able to bounce back from that accident?
That was just a stride. Is that what I guess it was? In shock, or is it just that much of a beast? It's like, who man just got right up and walked this one off real quick. Like,
I mean, the bounce up was as impressive as anything that happened. I mean, it was
looked like a
scary,
video
bro.
game.
It did.
It
It was
did.
scary. A sunshining Thursday for Shea Dixon in South Louisiana, which means you should be able to find him at Superior Bar and Grill somewhere around 2 o'clock.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, 2 p.m. We've got the over-under here set on the Jordy Culotta Show. The under looks like the lock right now. Enjoy the day, my friend.
Is that what
well, the
picture
happy
was?
hour doesn't start till 3. So
Okay.
that's for you.
A real veteran.
Yeah,
he knows.
Happy hour just keeps creeping up earlier and
It
earlier
does,
throughout the
doesn't
course
Oh,
of the
Shay's
day.
got that VIP happy hour, though. Maybe an hour ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
right.
gotta-
Answer your questions for the recruiting expert here. We'll probably see you over there, buddy. Enjoy the day.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right,
Oh, yeah.
see ya.
Bye.
We're